This is our 12th Open Garage Talk, and I think it's one of the best events that we provide here at CARS, and it's really an opportunity to bring in enthusiasts and people interested in the mobility space from all corners. And I think today's topic is really going to be particularly interesting because as researchers and academics, we spend a fair amount of our time talking about the future of mobility in autonomous, shared, and electric terms. And when we think about the super sport segment, typically that's something that's privately owned, it's gasoline powered and human piloted. So I think that our guest here tonight, Mr. Stefano Domenicali, who's Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Lamborghini, really is one of the best people to try to address these topics. I myself, I bike to work probably 9 days out of 10, but on that 10th day, I ride a Ducati. So to me, it's really that balance of mind and heart that we're talking about today. And along with Mr. Domenicali, who better to interview him than a professor here at Stanford who teaches students vehicle dynamics by schooling them at the racetrack, and also has just come back from the US Department of Transportation where he's helped them write new regulations for autonomous vehicles. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. With no further ado, I'd like to welcome Tom Kenny, who is Senior Associate Dean and Professor of Mechanical Engineering, to say a few words about Stanford. Thank you.
I'm going to have to find out how to commute with you on that 10th day. That sounds a lot more exciting than my commute. I drive a Ford C-Max. It's not in the same class. So hello everyone, I'm Tom Kenny. I'm Associate Dean of Engineering for Student Affairs. In my life, this is about admissions and tuition, financial aid, curriculum, and mostly it's about helping the really amazing students that find their way to Stanford every year find their best opportunities, meet their ambitions, and basically build their future. We think we're well structured for that. I think today is just a beautiful reminder of a lot of the things that Stanford has turned out to be good at, maybe to our collective surprise all the time. Here at Stanford, we've enjoyed really a long history of being at the forefront of technology and a transformation. We were part of the development of the integrated circuit, DNA amplification, many modern microsensors that are part of automotive safety systems. In my research field is a development. In many ways, Silicon Valley was born out of interactions between entrepreneurs, people with great ideas, and Stanford University. People with ambition who wanted to do great things. So it's an exciting place, and it really has been for many years. I think it's exciting now that the automotive industry and this new era of transportation seems to be coming back towards us, looking for innovation, looking for opportunities. Vehicles and transportation play an important, they have a very large role in our recent School of Engineering future vision planning process. Topics such as autonomy, cities of the future, and the impact of transportation systems on climate are all central to the mission of the School of Engineering. And I think it's fascinating that there's a nexus of these topics. I think more recently, and this is something I appreciate just from my own experience and my time talking to Chris, that cars have become really cool again. There was a period maybe 15 or 20 years ago where they just kind of seemed like they lost some coolness. And now they've become the cool thing, the technology, the autonomy, the innovation, and the role that the vehicles are going to play in our future are driving startups. They're the subject of visionaries and futurists. They're at the center of media attention. And really, in addition to attracting a lot of resources, they're helping Stanford attract the next wave of the smartest kids in the world. So it's an exciting codependence that we have, and it's really exciting to be part of that. I do want to take a bit of credit. 20 years ago, before we hired Chris Gerdes, we didn't know that cars were cool. And at Stanford, frankly, we didn't really have anyone working on vehicles and transportation to the degree we have today. And I think to some extent, it's maybe we deserve a little credit for recognizing how cool Chris Gerdes was when we interviewed him. And it wasn't so much for the things he talked about during his interview, but the things he's become, the things he's inspired, and clearly everything around us here. So I want to give a hand to Chris, just based on my personal appreciation. So in general, Stanford is an ideal place for forward-looking companies to collaborate on ideas and technologies that will define the future of transportation, just as it was for semiconductors, for the internet, for many other technologies. The spirit of innovation, collaboration, and energy drives what we do here, and it's thrilling to see this gathering of people and this gathering of ideas come to Stanford. And so please join me in welcoming this event to Stanford, to this phenomenal space, which I think we need to make bigger, Chris. And last, I'd like to introduce the Italian ambassador, Armando Verricchio, who's here to say some more words about this event and the people that are here. And so with that, I'll step aside.
Thank you very much, Tom, for your kind introduction. And I can confirm that cars are cool, actually. So I have many people to acknowledge tonight, but first and foremost, Professor Zuft, who welcomed me here when I just arrived, and Professor Gerdes. And the reason why I'm here is because of that flag over there. I'm very proud to see the Italian flag in this beautiful space here, and to talk about two brands. The first brand is Lamborghini, but the second brand, allow me to say, is my friend Stefano Domenicali. Because he has been a tremendous force behind Lamborghini, behind innovation. And to answer the question that Tom, you just asked me, cars are cool because, cars speak about innovation. Particularly cars coming from that specific part of Italy that we call Modena. Modena is a special place home to many companies, many brands, very famous brands. But Modena is famous for two main things. First is fast cars, and the second one is slow food. And food and cars are very well connected because they speak about passion, they speak about history, heritage. But in order to be in the market, in order to be competitive today, you have to invest, you have to look ahead. You have to drive your car, giving a look at your rear mirror, because you will never forget where you're coming from, but you have to look ahead. And this is exactly what Lamborghini is doing. And I couldn't imagine a better place than here, than Stanford. Stanford is an icon of innovation. It's a special place. By the way, Stanford has always been very well connected to Italy. Stanford has a very important campus in Florence. Most of the innovations realized here speak Italian because of members of the faculty, because of the researchers, because of students. So there's always been a connection. Before coming here to this very unique place, I just had a talk about Italy, the future of Europe, at the Ron Spoli Institute, and my good friend Ron Spoli is here. So I couldn't imagine a better cooperation. I look forward to listening to this talk. I'm sure that this will be very, very interesting. Lamborghini is a lot to say. Stefano Domenicali has a lot to say. And I'm sure that listening from the discussion today, we can be reassured that those special products that we come to love as cars have a lot to say us about the ability to project our future into the future, our hope into the future, our expectations that we have to innovate by bringing passion, by bringing our heritage, but as again, always looking ahead. And I'm sure that this will be what we will retain from today's discussion. Thank you very much.
Let's go up.
Join me here. Fantastic. Great. Have a seat. Stefano, thanks so much for joining. As you can see, a few people were very interested in coming out to hear what you had to say. One of the things that strikes me, given your history, is that you started with Ferrari. And Ferrari is a company really defined by Enzo Ferrari, who one might argue built road cars to raise the funds for racing. Now you're at a company founded by Ferruccio Lamborghini, who had a very different approach to performance, who didn't want the cars raced, who in fact wanted to design the ultimate touring car. And I'm curious, has that been a change for you personally to come from the racing environment and the responsibility for sort of the pinnacle of racing aspirations in Italy at Ferrari's F1 team, and then go to Lamborghini and look at performance through a different lens?
Well, Chris, I think that first of all, I don't want to repeat all the thanks that you have received, but also for me to be here with you, it's a great motivation. Great motivation, as our ambassador was saying, to look into the future and looking ahead. But because the question was for me looking behind, I will repeat. I will tell you exactly what was my feeling when I was informed by the group we are part of that had to be in Lamborghini. Well, you're right. I mean, Ferrari started its activity because it was a racing team. And then it developed that ambition to be the first and the quickest racing car, financing through the models that they were doing. They were great cars. And Lamborghini started this adventure in that business because it wanted to challenge Ferrari. And there was like a dispute in our region, in our place, 20 miles as maybe a diameter, to see who was the best to do the best car that were not racing actually, but was running into the field. So what was the difference? The difference is that for sure, from my side, I was responsible for racing activity. Racing gives you a big watch to respect in terms of respecting timing, respect on the fact that you are facing competition, that every Sunday you know that you have to try to beat them. And when you are in this framework, you know that there's no kind of excuses but to be the best. As I said, time, fast reaction, or time to market, that we call it, it is something that, I thought it's the same approach that even in the industrial situation like we are living today with Lamborghini we have to face. Competition is very strong. The field of competition is changing, but our approach has to be the same. The quickest one, the best one, respecting times, and trying to anticipate what are the challenges of the future. And on that respect, racing helps you really to keep the bar very high, because the evolution, the investment needed to be the best is incredible. Our situation today in Lamborghini is pretty unique. Let me say that from one side, we're living an exceptional moment of growth of our brand in terms of technology, in terms of reputation, in terms of brand awareness, in a moment where our niche is quite stable. The super sport car is more or less, we're talking about 35,000 cars in a world of more than 80 million vehicles all around the world. And on that respect, our presence there is stronger and stronger every year. In a situation where, when you want to be part of this niche, technology is fundamental for sure. You need to provide to the market, breakthrough technology for sure. But it's not only that. You want to give the experience to our customer to be unique and to be really special. So the element of technology is associated with the element of design, with the element of all what is connected to be part of this experience in the luxury brand. So it is something that, in a way, going back to your question about racing, is something that, in any case, is connected, because racing is a challenge. Racing, first of all, is a challenge against yourself, to try to be every day in front of the mirror at the night to see, okay, I did a step further into my performance? Yes or no? The answer has to be yes. Otherwise, how you can motivate your people with the same approach. On the other hand, racing is giving you a different field of action on which, for example, today in the supersport car, we are seeing from one side, youngsters that are less and less connected to the world of normal cars, but it seems to be incredible, it's a reality, very, very in love with our brand. So very, very in love with the value that being part of Lamborghini world means for them. So also here, we need to face the challenge between what are the technologies that are important, fundamental to our world, versus the technology that you have mentioned previously, for example, are relevant for the mobility of the future. Here we are talking about two different worlds in that respect. We are talking about, from one side, cars that are more and more connected to the mobility approach of life in a context that is totally different, with regard to a different way of moving. And I have to say that automotive industry has been always, since the beginning of the history, from the change to the horse to the first vehicle, at the center of the change of the habits of the world, in terms of culture, in terms of technology, in terms of relationship. And also in that respect, I would say that this is what we are living today, in this big step change that the new autonomous driving technologies are taking us in the normal automotive industry. But we are talking about a different kind of niche. We are talking about super sport car that you don't buy normally because it's the easiest vehicle to use if you want to move. For sure not. I would like to see if someone of you will say that to me, because I will learn something new. But on that respect, we are talking about a product that is totally different. You don't buy only a car, you buy a dream, you buy a status, you buy something that is totally different. So the real question that, and I thank my colleagues that are here with me today, in these days, our thinking in the company is how the relevant technology in the traditional automotive industry can be useful for our world. Because this is our challenge if we talk about technology. Because, and I would like to thank the students that we had the chance before to meet together. Really, the real question that we need to address as a super sport car manufacturer in the actual portfolio, because then we can talk about what is next for Lamborghini, but in the actual portfolio is really how we can keep our fun to drive with the new technology, or better, how we can improve our fun to drive with the new technology that the world and here you are really developing. And this is a big challenge that we are really concentrated on, because we do believe that if we want to be always at the pinnacle in this niche, we need to look forward to that. And the biggest mistake that we can do, us as a small company in Italy, is to pretend to have all the equipment, all the knowledge to attack this issue, to attack this future challenge. That would be the biggest mistake. So we don't want to be alone on that. It would be wrong. And for me, this trip here in Stanford gives me the possibility, not only to me, to our people, to open up the vision on that. And I can come back at home also after today with really a great push and great motivation, knowing that our challenge can be faced in the best way if we integrate with the best knowledge that are around the world.
That's fantastic.
No, I try to be synthetic, but I love it.
So we went from racing, and what really struck me in your response there is going from racing, which is clearly focused around the clock, and technology has a purpose, right? Can I get across the finish line faster? Can I go for place? Can I go for time? But then in terms of your customers and the experience and the driving fun, that has many more dimensions. And so the technology question of what technology is useful and should it go on the car or should it not suddenly becomes much more complicated, right?
Yeah, you're right. But we don't have to forget that when you buy a super sport like Lamborghini, you want to buy something that needs to give you emotion, not only in terms of technology, but in terms of what is the feeling that you have when you're driving. One of the most important elements is, as we said, emotion. Here we can have a big debate on what is emotion for me, for each of you. But we have to start from, is the value of emotion for our customer and for our brand. And for sure, fun to drive means that you control the car from one side, but you have emotion while you're listening to the music of the engine, for example. When you drive and people recognize you because you see that the people likes the design of the car, that is quite unique, is quite specific. So you as a customer want to be perceived as unique in that respect, and you want to be seen different. And this is one of the reasons why in this moment I do believe that the essence of our brand is to be different from the others. If we're not focusing on that, we're going to miss the challenge of our future. Because the more we are looking to the technology that will be in the automotive industry, and the more we need to be different from that. Because if you go, and it will not be the case, I just want to reassure you immediately, versus the electrification. In the future, the basic of the car will be the same for everyone, more or less. You can debate which kind of battery or whatever it is. But let's say, generally speaking, you can see from the technological point of view, we can have a lot of convergency versus more or less a unique platform. And then why are you going to buy a specific car? So once again, you need to push for the design. That is the first element on which you are attracted from, and from the brand value that are connected to the product that you're buying. So this is the reason why we want to give a unique experience to our customer. They want to be recognized in this world of Lamborghini. This is why the more we focus on the fact that, with regard to the performance of the car, we need to give the chance and to our customer to improve the way of driving the cars, so we can offer more service to that. We want to offer the fact that, being a part of Lamborghini family, you can come and see how we produce your car, because you can follow your chassis, you can see with the application, but you can come in the factory in Sant'Agata Bolognese and see the car that is done by the hands, still by the hands of our workers, because that's the difference. The beauty of our product is it's a sort of super technological product from one side, but with the hands of our mechanics and our workers. And one thing that for me it is really great, and I do believe that we are pushing in the right way, is to see all the people working in Lamborghini with a smile. So proud of their product, proud of the way that they are really hands-on what they are doing. And this is what we really need to make sure that is happening even in the future, because this is another way of being different from the others. We need to give soul to our products. If we don't give soul, it's not only horsepower, it's not only technology, it's not only, we need to give soul to the things. And on that, I have to say, one of the value of the two sides of our brain, the right one and the left one, creativity and rational, is that, let's say, under our flag, I would say there is really the great essence of what we can do together. Both connected, and this is what our customer wants to see from our products.
So you mentioned getting some insights from the students. I got a great insight getting the opportunity to drive a Huracan around here this weekend. And even in jaded Silicon Valley, it attracts a huge amount of attention. You don't actually drive through traffic in a Lamborghini, you define traffic.
You create traffic, quite because people are stopping and watching the car. That's good.
Everybody is reacting to you. It isn't a question of cars reacting to each other. People out on the highway are thinking about how they drive relative to you. Pedestrians are looking at, do I want to cross it? Hey, wait, look at that. It really is a totally different experience. And so when I think about fun to drive, normally I'm thinking of the experience that I'm having in the car. But with a Lamborghini, the experience is actually much broader. It engages people. And so I'm assuming that your customers are not necessarily the types who wish to kind of drive discreetly and unobserved through the world.
I wouldn't say so, but it's, let's say, in this world of digitalization is another way of connecting people.
Yeah.
So in a different way. So of course, if you are part of, let's say, Lamborghini customer, you want to be recognized, otherwise you don't buy that car. And you are proud of what you're showing off. And another thing that is important, let's say, for you to know, that our average age of our customer is pretty young. That is a great challenge, a great motivation for the future. Let's say the fork is between 30 and 45. So it's really, and in the far east of the world, it's even younger. But you may say, okay, rich people, for sure, they have the possibility to buy these cars, no doubt about it. But there are a lot of young people that are entrepreneurs that in these moments were able to make money because they did their own business. And they want to be seen driving Lamborghini. So it's a status that is a positive status. And this is, for me, very important. When we are talking about it being different, I want to be seen as something that we produce because we are positively addressing ourselves in this contest with respect of the others. But this is, for me, a very important thing. And we are in a phase where, because our brand is really growing, and because the base, as I said, is quite young, we need to think what? Because today, let's divide the thing into, with regard to the teenager, so scholarship age, they see us aspirational. So they could be potentially our customer in, let's say, from 10 to 20 years. So we need to keep this tension versus the aspiration with the value that they're going to develop in the future. So that is not an easy challenge. I don't have the magic,
Wand, yeah.
wand like a wizard to identify that. But the reason why it's so crucial for us to have antennas all around the world is just to understand in advance what we need to bring home. And what we bring home from here, for example, is different from what we have to bring home from Japan or from around the world. And we need to be open in that respect. We cannot control this market just being in our headquarters in Sant'Agata Bolognese. Forget it. So once again, that now we also are in a situation where we are going to develop a new product that is the super SUV. It's fundamental to have the right contact with the market through our dealers. They know what is going on. They know really how is the perception of the market, the value of our product. They need to tell us the trend. And then, of course, it's up to us to synthesize everything and to make sure that, what we are thinking for the future is the right product. And it's not easy because we need to counterbalance the need of maybe big investments for the future versus the fact that we are a small company. We are, selling 3,500 cars. It was a record year. Last year, we are going, touching wood or whatever it is, good also this year. But we have to double the dimension in 2 years when we're going to be more than 7,000 cars. When the new SUV will come in the market, we have a world premiere at the end of this year in Sant'Agata Bolognese in December. So the company is growing. Needs to be stable in this growth. We cannot allow ourselves to do peaks and dropping down. So we need to make the right choices with the dimension that we have in terms of investment. And in this moment, we are talking about new technologies. The need of money for that is really huge. We are in a situation where there are new technology at the beginning of the path, I would say. And as always, the cost of this is very, very high. So we need to prioritize the area in which we need to be the first developer and areas on which we need to be the fast follower. And we need to identify the moment on which it's needed, the flexibility to move with a certain content to another content. So easy to say, but not easy to position this point into the future strategy.
And then I guess there's a challenge as well as to how far you go with that technology. What does your customer want to do for themselves? Where do they want assistance? So things like traction control or automatic shifting, are these things that the customer wants? To what extent do you invest in that? To what extent do you give them control of the car?
Well, I think that the real point is where is, let's say, in the line between the man and the car, where we position the assistance. But I'm saying assistance, not the autonomous approach as normally is perceived. So the approach is the assistance. And on that respect, I have to say that for sure at the center of our car is the man or the woman that drives the car. So that is already a postulato. It's a point on which, the man or the woman has to drive the car. The feeling is direct, it's not indirect. And then in super sport car, steering wheel and pedals will be always there. At least I can, in the life, never say never. But, for sure in the next 20 years, I'm not expecting this dramatic change in this segment. I just want to make sure that I'm not misunderstood. In the super sport car. Fun to drive, you need to have the control of the car. The point is, where is the assistant that technology can help you to improve your performance? And on that respect, of course, there are a lot of debates and a lot of things on which we are working together with Maurizio Reggiani and his people, together with all the input can come from the outside world to see where this limit could go, in which direction. In certain areas, as you were saying, we have a possibility to control this. Traction control, you can decide to activate or disengage. We have in the new cars system on which you can decide. We call it ego mode, egoista, so it means that the way that you want to drive, to select the level of control that is on the steering, on the suspension, on the engine, on the noise. And this is something that is an added help or value on which you are in control of the car. Then, of course, in the future, certain technology related to the autonomous driving can be used to improve the performance while you're driving, to improve braking points, to improve the lines on while you're driving on the track, to control better. This is something that, for sure, this area of technology are fundamental because are connected to the experience that you behind the wheel you want to give while you are in this car.
We got a question from the audience about Lamborghini's plans to pursue hybridization. So while we're talking about technologies, obviously a lot of the character, the sound that you mentioned is tied up with the engine. As you think about moving towards the future, what role would hybridization and electrification play?
I would say that hybridization, we call it as a bridge versus this kind of tendency of electrification in the world of automotive industry. For sure, electrification, before answering to hybridization, is something that we don't see in the short term feasible in respect of the parameters of our super sport car in terms of weight, center of gravity, autonomy, peak of performance, average of performance, the need of being able to push the car into the limits that you can handle today. In the future, for sure it will arrive, but not in the short term. That's why, because of the tendency of attention to the CO2 and this kind of changing in that respect, hybridization is a path on which we are thinking to see which is the right kind of hybridization we're going to apply in our car into the future. That's for sure an area of great attention and an area in which our people are working to see when this will be possible. But we do believe that in that respect, our traditional ICE engine, combustion engine, has still a lot of potential to say. A lot of potential respecting all the limitations on the regulation for sure, but there is still a lot to strive out from them. And we don't have to forget that our future is connected to our heritage. So our heritage has been always, the traditional engine, very strong, very good. And because we have a niche, before leaving that out, we need to make sure that we develop as much as possible. And this is a value. It's like, there is here Roberto Tosina, our head of HR. And we were talking about, today all the young people are listening to the music, in whatever typology you have. But now vinyls, or whatever you call it, the disc, are getting more and more popular. Doesn't mean that the new technology cannot be used, but the value of our brand is to be coordinated with that and make sure that we exploit everything from that, because at the end of the day, we are talking about, on the V12 side, for example, an average 1,000 customers per year, new customers per year all around the world. And if we are not able to make sure that what they want from us is in the market, we are not going to do the right job and the right choices. So it's right to look ahead, no doubt about it, but we do believe the actual technology we have in place have still a lot to say in the short term for Lamborghini.
This seems like a big challenge as you move forward with the Urus and the design, because keeping the tradition of Lamborghini, keeping the aspects of that really appeal to the customer, and now moving into an entirely new era and an entirely new area. How do you take the sort of cultural lessons, the history of Lamborghini, and apply it into an SUV?
Well, I think, first of all, you may ask to us why we decided to go in with this product. Because
that's maybe a better question. So
no,
pretend I asked that one.
No, because I want to connect to that one, because it's sequential, I would say. First of all, Lamborghini in 1986 was the first to have the vision of I call it a strange SUV, LM002, that was a military usage, but it was an SUV, a special car that was unique in that respect also.
And you can see it in the first Fast and Furious movie as well.
You're right. But from that, of course, as you may recall, there is a lot of credit that we need to give to the Lamborghini of that period, because every couple of years there was a crisis and the change of shareholders. It's not easy to create good cars in such a dynamic, let me put it this way, situation. Normally good people, where they don't see stability, they need to find other alternatives. But the history of Lamborghini shows that despite this kind of crisis up to 1998, when Audi took the control and then gave stability to the process, all people were able to create special products. So LM002 was the vision. Then a couple of years ago, there was a lot of discussion. Is it correct to Lamborghini to be in this segment? Segment of SUV, as you know, is an increasing segment where all the automotive company jumped in because it's, as always, the market gives the answer, is the most used typology of car that is growing, gives you a lot of profitability. And this is the different way of using a car. And we thought, can we be coherent with our value? Yes. How? To create a super SUV with a very specific design, very coherent with the lines of the Lamborghini, 1 point. Second, respecting the DNA in terms of technological characteristic, handling behavior, power, and fun to drive. Therefore, this is, let's say, the approach, the strategic approach. Now, it's time to deliver the car. After a longer time of digestion, let me put it this way, we are in a process where we are investing. Actually, we have just finalized the investment in Sant'Agata Bolognese of doubling the size of the company in order to get ready to the assembly of this product. And I have to say, if I may, open a little point on, because I do believe that we have to thank our Italian government and Regione Emilia-Romagna, our region, because we were able to make an agreement with them in order to proceed with this kind of investment. And everything was done respecting timing, respecting engagements. And this is an example on which, sometimes we are too negative. But it's a real example on how the collaboration between institutions, government, the region, and a company that really wants to focus the investment in the place that we are living gives the result where we are. So we are respecting everything. We are ready for the launch of the SUV at the end of the year. And this will be a different story. Why? Because, of course, it's a different segment. It's not a super sport car. We call it a super SUV that will be in a segment where normal, let me put it this way, SUV are very, very competitive. We are facing competition versus the biggest, also our shareholder for sure, number of cars on which they have much more possibility in terms of investments, possibility in terms of retail network, possibility of content in terms of volumes. We know that. But once again, we need to be different. In that respect, we know that we want to be in that higher peak of this segment in order to attract people that wants to be different. And that's why, we are focusing our production in order to be ready in 2019, so tomorrow, to doubling the capacity and the sales and the turnover. Turnover I would love, but let's say the sales of the car in that respect. So such a short time with a totally different project means an incredible work to make sure that we can understand the new customers that are coming in. That can be customers that have already our products, but can be also customers that are really new to our world. We need to engage with our dealers. We need to extend our net. We need to change the level of service. We need to have stability in our resources to make sure that we understand how to follow this car. So a huge challenge that is current, once again, with the traditional value of our company. And this is, for me, my fundamental point of making sure that while we are taking new challenges, we are current with the values of our brand, with our company. And this is, for me, is even more important if I look even further. Let's assume that, as I really hope, and this is the reason why we are here to work in that respect, we are already tickled out, this next step. Our thinking is what will be the Lamborghini of the third step. So growth, stabilization, and another growth in which direction, which area, which technology. And this is the beauty of our situation today. We can think positive to our future because at the end of the day, the future belongs to ourselves, belongs to the choice that we're going to make, and belongs to the money that we will be able to generate.
Growth is exciting, but can also be a little scary sometimes. It sounds, when you talk about engaging with new customers, about doubling the size of the production facility, trying to figure out what Lamborghini stands for in this rapidly changing technology, it sounds like you're, in fact, asking all of your employees to think of their jobs as bigger than they have it. How do you deal with that as a leader?
This is a very, very fundamental point. You know, this is the moment where, as a company, we need to change the gear. In that respect, we need to change the approach. You know, when you are in a comfort zone where everything is normal procedure, normal stuff, you know, you pretend to know everything. Now, really, the push is really, we are looking for a different speed, and different skills, and in that respect, it's important to say that also, we have just signed off a very important agreement with the Italian University of Bologna, Modena, Ferrari, and Parma, basically our region, to identify, together with the other companies that are working in our field, that are in the Motor Valley region, that are Ferrari, that are Dallara, that are Ducati, and what are the skills that we need for the future. So we can really build up the professional, the cluster that are, for us, the future need in terms of really skills that are, once again, needed for the next step change in respect of our future challenge. But, you know, I'm saying that because scare is not really the right word, but attention, and the attention that has to go deeper into the organization is what we need. Focus and attention versus the change that we need to look ahead into the future. This is really a must. You know, as I said, we are a very small company. Our board is 6 people. Within these 6 people, we cannot change the company. If you're not able to put the right positive pressure into the organization, that has to change this step change that we live in today. So it is good from the other side to live this moment in this such positive environment that we live in. It will be much more difficult if we have to face crisis. So this is what we are focusing on. This is why we are doing meetings with all the people, with all the relevant directors to enhance and to make sure that everyone has clear what are the rules of the games that we have to live today. It's a matter of sharing responsibility versus the growth of our company. And the proud that we have being the one that has to be the influential of our change has to become from ourselves. If we do believe that has to come from other people, ciao. So this is the reason why I'm passionate about it. We need to live this change with the passion that, and because we are young inside the company, if you don't find the right approach to this change, where we can find the right atmosphere and the right feeling. Great place to live, great place to work, great motivation to the future, great awareness that we are receiving from the fact our people were able to create the product that are now really are loved by our customers. So all the ingredients are positive. So we're gonna fail, it will be a big disaster, but I hope and I'm sure that our structure will react in the right way in this moment of, as I said, the need of this new, the new car, I call it a game changer for us. And I really think that we can do the game changer if our structure has this kind of mental approach.
So obviously a passion for the company, for its history, for its possibilities are things that you're looking for in the people that you're adding to fuel the growth. You mentioned working with some of the universities. What are some of the other characteristics, either in terms of skills or personal characteristics that you're looking for in the organization to try to take these next steps?
Well, first of all, I have to say that we are living a quite interesting moment because of our growth. We are employing a lot of people. And it's not easy to find, all the people with the right skills and the right specification. We have just working on, since a couple of years, of the double school and formation at work. And we are doing it to try to develop the skills while young people are studying and working at the same time. We need to have the right connection with a great place like here, a great place like our university, but it's not enough because we need to create the intermediate structure on which we need to create the difference because our cars are done by the hands of our workers. And our environment inside the car, it's leather, you see, is done by the man the hands of the women and the men of our people. So we need to characterize our professionality, and on that, we need to be the driver of this growth. And we need to create the collaboration with all the entity around us, and we need to make sure that there is enough turnover to make sure that from one side, it's not too fast, because we need to have stability on that. But on the other hand, as soon as the new skills are needed in the companies to be integrated inside. It's not easy, but this is something that we need to live every day.
So a few more questions from the audience. Go back to racing for a moment. We've talked a lot about technology and what we need to move forward. Is Formula One still relevant in that, in terms of developing technologies for the streets?
Well, I do believe that yes, from one side, but then the application is different, because when we talk about Formula One, we are talking about a very prototype, sorry for that, approach, on which the normal industry cannot afford in terms of cost. So the Formula One can drive certain direction in terms of development, but cannot drive the same product versus the usage in the normal world, because the cost is by far too expensive. So from one side, yes. From the other side, no. From the other side, I have to say, if I connect the motorsport experience with our situation, our motorsport platform is current with our brand, because we want to give the fun to drive to the extreme customer, but the basic car is the one that we are producing. We have a platform of Huracan Super Trofeo that is the most, in terms of numbers today, most cars that are in a single maker series, and we have this car in the line of production, so the flexibility is guaranteed. We give, once again, the performance side of our, maximum performance side of our world in our motorsport platform, with a different characteristic, of course. We were not born like Ferrari in Formula One or in racing. We were born in super sport car, and we are developing the motorsport platform because we do believe that is integrating the experience to our customer with our cars.
So in terms of the goals of motorsport for Lamborghini, so we were just at the Long Beach Grand Prix, and I had a great experience. I was there with my 11-year-old son. We're up on the rooftop of our hotel. He's looking down at the track. The cars are going about 3 blocks away. These are the IMSA cars. And he turns to me and goes, "Hey, Dad, what series is it that the Lamborghinis are racing in?" And I could barely even see the cars, and yet it's visible to him, despite the change in the aero package, that that's a Lamborghini. And I'm curious, so are you in racing, in IMSA in particular here in the US, for really developing the technology or the peoples, or as sort of a brand ambassador position?
It's a brand ambassador. It's showing that we can fight with the other incredible, automotive competitors. We're giving the challenge to our drivers to exploit their skills. And as your son correctly saying, we are visible and we are recognizable in all the different categories we are racing. And I have to say, we are so far successful. We are just coming out from a race in GT3 last Sunday. Actually, we were on the plane watching stream with the connection Wi-Fi on the plane, the fact we won in Silverstone. So it's a presence that is connecting all these elements. But I know that some of other people always ask me, "Are you ready to get in Formula One?" And I said, we don't have the need to go in Formula One, because the risk is higher than what we're going to bring home. And it's not really a vital thing to be there for us so far. In the future, never say never. But in the medium term, by far, we have other priorities. By far, our motorsport approach has to be there, maybe exploiting a different step in the actual category we are living today, but not in the biggest step that is, for sure, too demanding for us. And also, honestly, in this moment where, from one side, it's not me answering to that, where Formula One is losing attention, I'm still a Formula One lover, you can imagine about it. But, youngsters are not so anymore focused on Formula One. So why get into this area of risk? So no one is forced us to do it. We are very happy about our situation. So in the medium term, we don't plan to do anything different from that.
But what are some thoughts about engaging that next generation, the 11-year-olds who are now looking and saying, oh my gosh, a Lamborghini, the neighborhood children who I had to scrape off of the Huracan this weekend in order to return it. What might they expect when they are, as Silicon Valley youth, able to start their startup and succeed and afford their Lamborghini in 15 years? What might that be like for them?
I do believe that they want to see cars that are recognizable as they are today. So different from the others. I stress this fact because at the end of the day, I ask to myself, and sometimes I have to be totally honest with you. I don't have the right answer. I don't have one answer. I got be very honest. Once again, I had one son and one daughter. They were born in the middle of Ferrari blood, let me put it this way. And even before, they didn't know, and I didn't know for sure that was coming to Lamborghini, were saying to me, Dad, look, it's Lamborghini. And at that period, I was a little bit embarrassed because, it was difficult for me to accept that it was a real story, but it was a fact. So I think that a lot of things are also connected to the fact that it's strange, but it's true that, our cars are used in areas where, a lot of youngsters recognize themselves in music, in movies, in things that they see in gaming. We are pushing a lot on that because it's a connection versus the brand where they really see Lamborghini part of their life in that moment where, technology is different from the technology that we were using when I was young. So this is really the reason why the biggest challenge is to make sure these values are there when they will be able to be part of the Lamborghini family, not only from the aspirational point of view, but also from the potential point of view in terms of being a customer.
Do you think we'll ever get to a point where vehicles are totally automated and the motoring enthusiast is starved from roads to enjoy these vehicles?
No. There are still horses that are around, more value on the horse than the car sometimes. So I do believe that the value of something that has to give you a different passion will be always there. And I do believe in this moment, when there is correctly a lot of focus in a lot of things, our niche is getting more and more value. And for sure, I'm not expecting that in the medium term, this will go away.
I didn't make any progress on this when I was in Washington, D.C., but in my vision, if we were to take the best drives and turn them into national parks, that could be an awfully nice way of preserving this. So a question from the audience, what is your daily driver?
Audi RS7.
All right.
We are part of the group of Audi, as you know, so we respect the role. To use our car as a mobility vehicle, it's not really the main focus, let me put it this way. And our car has to be used by the customer, not by me.
Fantastic. Now, how important has Audi been in the racing aspects of Lamborghini? Because clearly Audi has its own history of racing. The Pikes Peak efforts inspired some of our own research here, and obviously the recent victories in Le Mans, developing the diesel engines. Is there a lot of overlap between the Audi race teams and the racing efforts at Lamborghini?
Well, for sure, as you know, our relation with our show is really great, fantastic. And on the racing aspect, I have to say that everything started from a common project. But as always in life, when you are in racing, even if you're racing with your brother, you give him a kiss before the race, but when the visor is down, you want to beat him. And this is the same kind of approach that we live in with our colleagues or shareholders of Audi. And in the same categories that we are racing, of course, we want to show that we can do things in a different way, even better. So it's a different challenge. And for the one that are racing enthusiastic, you can have a look on what are the results today. I don't want to say anything for respect to our shareholder.
Love to ask a follow-up there, but I'll refrain. Another question from the audience. So if you're manufacturing cars for motoring enthusiasts, how do you deal with the calls to add more and more safety equipment, which may take control away from the driver?
There is two aspects of this. One is homologations and things that have to be in the car because otherwise you are not receiving homologation to be on the street. And on this subject, no doubt about it, and we will do it. Safety is a priority. There's not even a single dollar that is saved to get out from safety. And the safety approach, not only racing, but in our business is you don't have to put down the attention because, it's not the payback, but the negative reaction, or if you have a problem on that, is very big. So on that is a must, a highest level of attention, no saving in terms of efficiency and in terms of space. And this is a challenge, let me put it this way, because when we are talking about a small car that has to respect certain characteristics, the more you put on and you add on safety devices, and the less space you have inside. So this is a challenge for our people to make sure that, the two things are combined together, but safety priority, no doubt.
And that can be a challenge, I imagine, with your customers and your cars, because your cars have a huge amount of capability, which the customers may or may not have the ability to safely access. So how do you deal with that challenge in design?
It's true that the performance of our car today is, with all respect of the customer, of the few of them that can exploit the maximum of it, much higher from the level of the, let's say, normal or the average customer can exploit. So where we position ourselves in that respect? I would say the answer to that is to make sure that, as I said before, we give access to different characteristics of the car from one side, and we give the opportunity to special course, special lesson for them to come and have the experience of our cars with our drivers, with our teachers, because that's the only way to really make sure that you know what you have under your hands, or whatever you have something under you. And this is the reason why in the last couple of years, and this year especially, the attendance to this driving course that we call Academia in our company is really successful, because we give the opportunity for our customer to be with our coaches, with our people that knows what are the limits, and they will learn, they step by step in a safe environment like is the track. Because we don't have to forget that what is the flexibility of our car? If you want to push, you have to go on the track. That's the place where you have to push, you have to have fun. If you want to go on the street, you have to exploit the other characteristic of the user of a car. Noise, design, feeling proud of what you are. But that's why you can tune yourself depending which kind of characteristics you want to emphasize.
All right. See, so there was a question from the audience that IndyCar racing might be a good series for Lamborghini. Any interest in participating?
As I said, life is a matter of priorities. So far, our motorsport platform will not change. We'll stay focused on what we are doing today. And our priority in terms of investments has to be focused on the new project that we just discussed. So that's really the situation. I know there is the 500 Indianapolis in 10 days. Exciting race. I was able to attend that once. It was really great. I was there in the time of Formula One. I do believe that Indy can help, the motor enthusiastic of the United States of America to build up once again. Unfortunately, we don't have to discuss about it. Many years ago, there was the split of that division into different categories, and a lot of things were lost. But now I do believe that could be an help to recover the passion versus the traditional motorsport that is really something that is unique. But I'm a racer as a beginner, so that's my feeling.
So let me close with one final question for the students in the audience. So if they're half as excited about the opportunities of designing technologies for the motoring enthusiasts as I am after listening to you, what should they be thinking about in terms of skills to acquire or attributes to have if they would like to make a difference in this future and make sure cars are fun to drive in the future?
Well, I think that for sure the point came out really clearly to me when we had the chance to meet, the group of students this afternoon. My view, if you want to, let's say, to be the key differentiator element or person in the super sport car, you have to put at the center the fun to drive thing. And then apply all the technology you're developing versus this objective. Because this will be the focus of the super sport car. And no matter it's autonomous, no matter it's dynamic vehicle dynamics, no matter it's the research, no matter it's the field on which you are developing that, if you want to make the difference in a world where Lamborghini wants to be different, is really focus this technology versus the fact that you need to keep the attention at the center of this path on the fact that behind the steering wheel there is a man or a woman that wants to have fun.
Fantastic. Stefano Domenicali, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Chris.
I think there's one more thing on the subject of students.
Yeah, because we're talking about students.
We're talking about students
and
cooperation.
We are a small company that needs to be operative. I would like to just ask to Lucio, that is the first guy that is coming from Stanford that will be with us, starting hopefully very, very soon in a journey with regard to what we discussed. So Lucio, please. Thank you very much. So he will be the first privileged and lucky guy that will come from the 1st of September in our premise to work together. So all the best, in bocca al lupo, and we're looking forward to see you with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you again for your time and a wonderful discussion.
Thank you, Chris. And grazie per l'attenzione.